I've been traveling around the planet really all my life. When I was a kid, I was in the Merchant Marines, so I got to sail around the world at a time, when the Vietnam War was going. There was a draft. Everybody my age was very tuned in to the political atmosphere there, and there was a lot of tension and ways that we felt that the government was not being honest. And I really saw how really messed up it is almost everywhere else on the planet. So travel and meeting people from different cultures, there's a certain irony, because now what I like to do with art is to kind of step back from having a cultural component and make the art so that it is a little more inherent to what it is to be human on Earth. So I'm very fascinated with the fact that the components that make us up are the same things that makes up the Earth. The elements that come from a volcano are part of our makeup. So how can we not feel this connection with Earth? So travel, and then working in the high tech industry, initially as an electrical engineer, and then moving to more of the material science, like a physical chemist for electronic materials, at a very interesting and fascinating time of high intensity. So those things brought me around the world to be able to present my work throughout Europe and Asia, and just getting a feel. One of the greatest experiences of my life was in a 6-month period, at the summer solstice of 2017. I was on the research ship, the Endeavour, for National Geographic, and we were up in the Arctic. And the crew of that ship that had been working it for over 20 years had never been able to go that far north because of the ice. So we were within about 83 degrees north latitude, on the order of 500 miles from the North Pole. That was followed up 6 months later in January on a trip to the Antarctic. So seeing the power of nature in those kinds of experiences and these pristine regions of the planet has a great impact on me. I have a certain reverence that just permeates my perspective about everything. Just an appreciation for the planet that we inhabit, and what we're doing about it, about that responsibility. The Antarctic brought back some great experiences that changed my life from when I was in the Merchant Marines. We went across the Drake Passage, and it's the Drake Shake. There's about 40-foot swells, but you see that not only the patterns but the power of nature, and that is really a tremendous experience to witness. When I was a kid, I was in the North Atlantic in a full gale, and I was working actually on an oil tanker at the time, the USS Mobile Arctic. It was the largest ship in the US fleet at that time. And you have to just steer straight in. It was a full gale, over 80-mile-an-hour winds, but it was 80-foot swells. So you could just see the surface of the ocean undulating, where peaks were coming up, and the trough between them, peak to peak, was about 80 feet. So you're rising up like you're in a fast, high-speed elevator. You come to the top. When you come down, it's all of this settling down in. It's an incredibly challenging environment to be in, because you realize you can't just wave a credit card and change your situation. You got to ride this out. And we lost 2 lifeboats that got ripped off the side. 2-inch steel pipe railing around the perimeter of the ship just looked like spaghetti. We were breaking the waves with the bow, and a wall of water 800 feet to the wheelhouse in the back. So the ways that these ships went down in the past was just have the wheelhouse knocked off, or when they were suspended bow and stern on a peak, you have an 80-foot air gap in the middle of the ship, and they could break open if they weren't double hulled under their own weight if they had a load on. But the real thing is over many hours, a couple of days, in fact, and especially at night, where you're completely at the mercy of the power and the wrath of nature. And it changed my life. It changed the way I approach life. And I would dream about that, not nightmares, but just being in that tremendously awesome, powerful nature scene would come and revisit in dreams, and still does to this day, 40 years later. So just amazing experience, appreciation of nature. And so that's all. I just want to find out more about it. How do these things on such a grand scale also experience the same forces of nature on a microscopic scale, and how these things occur in all sort of walks of life around the planet. It's spectacular.